Welcome to my presentation on building a sustainable open source cloud with OCP platforms. My name is Christoph. I'm a CEO and co-founder of ScaleUp Technologies. And to give you a brief background on who we are a rather small managed hosting provider based in Germany. We have around 7 data center sites in Germany, and we are heavily focused on running open source solutions. And as we're talking about cloud here, we are also running an OpenStack-based cloud for an infrastructure as a service offering and a Kubernetes platform, everything open source. We are a small team, and besides our focus on running open source, we have recently, a couple of years ago, also focused a bit more on becoming more sustainable. I mean, today everyone is talking about sustainability. A couple of years ago, that was a different story, but we are putting very much effort into getting there, actually. So why even consider building a cloud with open hardware? As I said, our software stack is fully open source for, I don't know, almost 10 years now. We figured, why not replace the existing 19-inch proprietary hardware with something more open. And about 2 years ago, someone approached me and asked me whether I would be interested in acquiring some old Facebook servers, and I was like, well, I don't even know. Back then, I didn't even know what that was. We went ahead and did a bit of research, and the fact that the hardware designs are fully open, same as with the software we are using, kind of looked interesting to us. Then there was also mentioning about server systems using less energy, and especially for us in Germany, power prices have always been very high. Nowadays, they are extremely high. So we figured, well, maybe we should spend some time and look into it. And as we were already working on our sustainability and reducing our emissions, we also figured that, well, maybe this would also help us in reducing some of our CO2 footprint, as the OCP servers tend to use less material than a typical proprietary 19-inch server. I mean, for example, those stupid faceplates in front of the servers, they are useless anyhow, and we never really install them. We decided, well, let's give it a try and let's try to set something up. So what we did at first was we ordered just a couple of servers just to get our hands on them and understand the differences, and there are many differences, as you may all know, but most people in our size, well, they haven't even heard of OCP. The next step was that we did get 2 full racks of servers for an initial installation of our OpenStack and Ceph setup for a storage part. And as I mentioned earlier, as we are trying to reduce our overall CO2 footprint, we decided to use refurbished server systems. Foremost, using OCP, our aim was to reduce our Scope 2 energy, and I think this was pretty well explained earlier today in different presentations. So since OCP servers are using less power, this would reduce our Scope 2. And the fact of using refurbished systems would reduce our Scope 3 emissions, because those servers have been previously used for 2 or 3 years. So we will just extend the time frame of using those servers by quite a bit, and thus this will drastically reduce our own Scope 3 emissions in running this type of setup. So the only thing that was still rather unclear for us was how much reduction we could actually get out of, reducing the Scope 2, how much reduction in power usage can we really expect. So what we did is we researched the internet quite a bit, and basically the only thing we found was this a presentation from SK Telecom. I think it was in 2007 at OCP Summit. They actually performed quite a big benchmark comparing traditional 19-inch server systems to OCP servers. And the graphs that you see here on the right-hand side are from SK Telecom, and they show savings of roughly 40 to 50% when servers are running idle, and almost 20% when a server is fully used. So it's nice to have an existing test or benchmark, but we wanted to try it out ourselves. So what we did is that we used some of our Dell-based 19-inch servers and OCP servers and did a comparison. So the servers were configured exactly the same, exact same CPU type, exact same amount of RAM, same disks, so everything very similar. And these are the results that we came up with. And I think what's quite interesting is that even in idle mode, when servers are, just there, sitting there and doing almost nothing, we came up with savings of 38% on energy. And I think this was also mentioned in one of the earlier presentations. There's always systems running idle in a setup, because when you're trying to offer an infrastructure as a service offering, you always have to have a certain overhead for people to scale up their services. So you do have to have some servers sitting there doing nothing, and they will just get some work to do when they will be used. So our setup is never used 90 or 100%. So having some of those servers using much less energy when they have nothing to do is actually quite interesting. So in essence, we did confirm those benchmarks done by SK Telecom, and we did some additional testing. So in most of our data center sites, there's no cold eye containment yet, because those data centers have been running for the last 10, 15 years already. So what we tried is we did the benchmark again, using cold aisle containment for the OCP racks, which brought us another roughly 2% in savings just on the server power side. So this is all interesting and all good, saving power, but we thought, well, maybe there's even more to get out of it. So we have a partner in the Netherlands, a company is called Block Heating, and they are also using OCP servers, and they are basically also running an infrastructure stack, and they basically use those OCP servers to heat greenhouses in order to grow vegetables. And they have installed a liquid cooling system, as you can see in the picture here. That's from their servers. They built it out themselves, so it's a custom-built setup, and we partnered with them in order to investigate on how much additional savings we could generate by switching from fully air-cooled OCP servers to liquid-cooled servers using cold plates on the servers. So those are the results, or at least part of the results that Block Heating came up with. There's a much more extended benchmark and a very large Excel sheet. If anyone is interested in getting that information, just let me know. We are happy to share that. There's even additional potential in saving power if we would go to liquid cooling, and this is only focusing on the server power side. There is a lot more potential, and this was also presented earlier today on the data center side. I know this graphic is rather small, but as I said, we are very happy to share like the extended Excel sheet. And as you can see, so the yellow blocks are the ones for the air-cooled OCP, for an air-cooled OCP server, and the blue lines are for liquid-cooled. And as you can see, on the server level, there's not much to be saved. On the data center level, the savings is already much higher. And I think the most interesting part is that when we go to liquid cooling, we can also much more easily reuse the heat in order to use the heat for other purposes compared to the air cooling. So overall, there's only a small amount of net energy waste with water-cooled, liquid-cooled compared to the air-cooled solution. So quick overview of how the setup looks like. We have typical servers with dual Xeons, RAM, 25 gig networking. We use 100G switches in the back end. And as I said, it's fully open source. We use OpenStack, Ceph, and Kubernetes to offer to run this offering. We have developed our own Ansible automation to basically provision the complete stack. The full rack of the servers is automatically provisioned on the network side, on the server side, on the OpenStack side, as well as getting customers onto the platform. And we are going to open source our automation later once, we finished with some of our documentations. So you might think, why present this at an OCP summit? And what I have discovered, or what we have discovered when we worked on this project, was that for a small company, so not being a hyperscaler, the hurdles to actually using OCP are very high. And this starts out with some maybe trivial challenges like, an OCP rack is expecting the power to come up to the top of the rack, whereas most traditional data centers have raised floors and all the power beneath the raised floor. So you somehow have to extend your power lines to the top of the rack, which is maybe not that difficult, but still a small challenge. And there were some other problems that we discovered. So, for example, when we were still in the process of ordering those servers, we actually looked at the design specs of the OCP servers, and they said that they would come with an IPMI interface. Well, turns out once we received the servers, they didn't have a dedicated IPMI interface because this is an optional part in the design spec. And what we found out is that it's rather difficult to get some information on our technical specs on those servers, because it's not like with a traditional server. When you order from Dell or HP, you go to their site, they have everything in place, they have all the firmware listed for the server and things like that. With OCP, it's a bit more difficult to get to that information. But nevertheless, we think it makes sense for us to continue to use OCP, and we're also getting some traction with other customers who are more and more interested in leveraging OCP as well. And we think that for us it's right step to go into that direction. So what's my call to action? What should happen next? I believe, and I mean, we're in the sustainability track, OCP should not only be used by hyperscalers and large enterprises out there. I think if it makes sense to open up the use of OCP to a much larger market. And I mean, most IT systems out there in the world are still sitting in some company headquarters, offices, or wherever. So these need to be moved to a data center anyhow. But then if they were also to use OCP-based solutions, where we just showed that they are more sustainable by using less power, for example, it would make a lot of sense and help all of us to reach our sustainability goals worldwide. So I think OCP can be a big driver in reducing CO2 emissions, the data center space and the IT space in general. But, and there is a but, I think there's some work to do for the overall OCP community to make that happen. So foremost, I think there needs to be more education, more resources about OCP, which is suited for smaller users. So not everyone is using thousands of servers at a time, and those smaller users have to have a chance to get the information they need to learn about OCP and what it means for them and how they can leverage that. I think there should be a better documentation, maybe some central repository, and we do know this from other open source software projects where this is there, even though there are many enterprises and contributors involved in such a project. There's still a central documentation, a central repository where we can go to and get our information, and I believe this is still missing with OCP. And last but not least, better communication and collaboration possibilities. So sure, there's a few mailing lists, there's the wiki where some documents are linked, but I think there needs to be some more effort to make it easier to communicate with the overall community and, I don't know, post questions and remarks on how to use it. So with that, I think my time is almost up, 2 minutes left. I'm thanking for your attention. Danke, as we say in Germany, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Yes?
Hi, thank you so much for your insightful thoughts, especially on the call to action. I'm from the Meta or Facebook sustainability team, so found this talk very interesting. You talked a lot about the environmental and CO2 benefits, definitely from the efficiency side.
Yes.
I'm curious, did you also make estimates on the embodied carbon that your company's taking responsibility for, and what was the methodology?
Yeah, so we're currently working with that, but the issue we have right there is that we can't get that information. It's not available, right? We would love to get our hands on, and we have reached out to the foundation already and see if they can help. But up until now, we don't have it. But we would love to have it, yeah. And we need to get it. At some point, I mean, we have to have it, otherwise, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.